suddenly grab my face and run out of here is because the London hospital didn't do a good job last night. I was carried off the plane with a very severe nosebleed.
Oh dear.
So, but now I got to brush my teeth and change my socks and I'm back in business. There are lots of things described also on the background for what I'm going to say in the Children of Scotland magazine. So I will not dwell on that. I would like to make one point clear, because it is very often understood otherwise. I'm very often being talked about and written about as like a friend of children. And that's not really how it started. And it's really not how it's going on. Not that I don't like children, but my concern was, and my job was, to try to help adults who got frustrated in relation to either their own children or the children of other people, who could not find a way of collaborating and developing and so on, whether it was inside families or schools, kindergartens, whatever it was. So I would like to emphasize that what I have been able to, or we have been able to learn over the last 30, 40 years comes from trying to not do exactly mediation, but something like it, which is sit around the table, adults, children together, and what we have discovered mostly, apart from new principles that I will get back to, is that our initial experience, our initial theory, if you will, turned out to be right, which is that families, or family, is probably the most powerful institution we have, and what is normally being done within treatment, therapy, assistance, whatever we call it, is that we're usually looking at the trouble that parents in many, many different ways are giving or passing on to their children. We're very often talking about parents as the source of the problems that children experience later, which is all true. I'm sure you are all aware that brain science has now answered the very, very old question, is it biology or is it psychology? And the answer is yes, it is. Very nice to get that settled. So what is it we can do? What is this power, this amazing constructive power? I've just been finishing my participation in a Norwegian television program over a series of 9 programs dealing with 12 so-called school dropouts, 17-year-old boys and girls who were actually not, as we learned, they had not been dropping out of school, they had actually been pushed out of school, all of them. And the idea was to see what is it that they really need. So they were sent off to an island with 2, 3 excellent teachers, and within 5 weeks they learned more than normal Norwegian school children do in 5 years. What was very, very interesting was that I had the chance to meet all 12 families, the youngsters and their mothers and fathers, for a very short time. First half hour, 1.5 hours, a general little lecture from me. What is family? What does it mean? How does things happen? How do we produce beautiful things and terrible things and all that? And then individual talks. And let me underline as much as I can that I did not do family therapy with these 12 families. I simply sat down with them around the table and I had two questions. For the youngsters, what would you like to change in your relationship with your mother and your father? And for the parents, one question, what would you like to change in your relationship to your son or your daughter? And hearing about fathers here, which is like the topic of the day or maybe the next century, let me give you one brief example of how powerful it is. When we, so to speak, know what we are doing in supporting it. This is a family coming from the north of the polar circle. Father is a fisherman, and he's a big, strong man. Guys from up there usually say about 5 sentences a day, but only if they have something to say. And then they don't save them till next day. They just start on a new page. He was a big, strong guy. Mother was a tiny little woman, and looked actually 20 years older than she was. The son was a 17-year-old, almost 2 meters high, about 50 kilo overweight zombie, who was like moving like very, very, very slowly, and very rarely lifting his head, very rarely looking anybody in the eye. The school people, who were very, very enthusiastic about the whole thing, really had no clue if this boy learned anything or he did not learn. They really didn't know. He was okay. Okay, so I asked him, said, please give me your paper, your answers, and he said, I didn't write anything. I asked the father, he said, I cannot write. I took from the mother, and the mother had written, and it was amazing, a handwriting smaller than the print, from the printer. She wrote, I should probably stop being such a, like a chicken mom, I think you say, like somebody's always taking care and always protecting and so on. And I said, okay, let's start there. And she was sitting here, and the father was there, and the son was up there, half asleep, it looked like. And she said, well, you know, as you can see, he's 17, he's almost adult, and he's still throwing his stuff all over the place, and I'm picking them up, and, you know, maybe I thought, you know, but I don't know what you think, maybe, you know, it was time to stop that. What do you think? She asked me. I said, yeah, it was time about 6 years ago. And then father said to me, he said to everybody, he said, I would like to say something. And it was a surprise for his family. And he pointed at me and he said, I listened to this guy yesterday, and he referred to this lecture I gave about how families function. And I have not been able to sleep since. And I know now that many things have to change in this family, and I am the one who has to begin, and I am the one who has to change the most. I have always thought that my contribution and my most valuable contribution to this family would be to go to sea, catch fish, make money, and that was it. Now I know that I made a mistake. So what was interesting in the process was that he spoke for the first time in his life for 20 minutes. Nobody else said a word. And the boy was like, you know, the old tire company, Michelin, had this Michelin man, who was like, and he was sitting there like, and it was like for every sentence the father said, he was like, you know, more and more air. And suddenly he was sitting up straight, and he was just looking at his father like he was, you know, in love with him. And Mother was sitting next to me and just crying. Tears were running quietly down her face. And I said to her, I whispered to her, I said, "It's a fine man you have there." And she said, "Yeah, isn't he? He can say it. I can only think it." The next 2 days, father and son walked around the island like this. And the son was this big, father was this small. And to the surprise of everybody, the guy turned up in school. He didn't have his cap on. He looked everybody in the eye. He answered all the questions, and it turned out that everything they learned, he knew, he remembered it, but nobody knew about it. And this was one of 12 magic hours, so to speak, that really speak to the enormous power of family. What can happen if we do it well, so to speak. But also that it is never too late. So what we have discovered over the years is that most of the things, I don't know where to point this one. Of course, I don't have to go through that. I talk, I'm sure we are all occupied with all the different kinds of children that there are. One particular group is in focus for me at the moment. I was yesterday, and the day before yesterday, spending time with the politicians and administrators of the Norwegian government and their child and youth welfare, because they have had to come to terms with the fact that they have a so-called success rate that is now falling very rapidly below 20. And it used to be, they have lived with 35 for many years for some reason, but this was it. And now, as they have just finished paying 50, 60-year-old citizens who were mistreated within the system, they have now been giving them huge amounts of money to say, you know, we're sorry. And now they're facing a new wave of 7, 8, 12, 14, 15-year-olds who are standing up at conferences, in media, and in committees, and talking about the kind of abuse that they are confronted with in their daily lives, in homes, foster families, and institutions. Of course, they are not as brutal, they are not as directly like sexual abuse and others as they were 100 years ago, but they are not less damaging to each individual. I have said also in the article that nobody knows what is the right way of bringing up children, and children that are thriving, families that are thriving, are of course extremely interesting, because it is interesting to find out what are they doing, why do they feel so successful, and why can we also statistically prove that they are successful. But the most interesting part is, of course, for people like me, where is it not succeeding, and what can we do in order to help them succeed, whether it is newborn parents, so to speak, with a 3-month-old crybaby, or whether it is parents to a school dropout, or whatever we call it. So what we have to do, of course, is that we have to get some kind of idea of what we want. I will get back to that. We wrote a book some years ago for professionals, which was called From Obedience to Responsibility, because this is what we wanted. We wanted obedience. My parents wanted obedience. Their parents wanted obedience, and so on. This was like the successful. And being a child back then was like being an actor. Your parents would write the manuscript, and when you learned all the lines and learned to say them at the right time, you were well brought up, and that was it. Who you were, how you were feeling, and nobody cared about that. So now it came, we started, and we can start seeing what are we doing. What we always said was, even my parents said that. They said, either you will appreciate that when you grow up, or you know, you have to learn these things to have a good life as an adult. So we were trying in a way to say, okay, we're doing this to the children now because then they will get a good life. The question is, did we succeed? The answer is easy. No, not at all. We have a small country, Denmark, 5 million people, and I will not make you depressed with all the details, but I mean, and we are supposed to be the most happy people in the world. We have 575,000 chronic alcoholics between 25 and 45. We have 26% of the same age group coming into contact with adult psychiatry at least once in their life. We have now a government committee examining the abuse of 630,000 so-called well-functioning adult Danes that are swallowing more than six different kinds of medication every day. We're having a use and an abuse of legal drugs among adults all over Europe that is, I mean, thousands of times bigger than the little problem that young people have with drugs. That is so tiny in comparison with what the whole adult population is doing. We can go on and on and on, and I will not do that. Just make this simple statement: we have not been successful. So I think that what we can, I think it's possible to agree that this is somehow, when we try to imagine our children like when they're 18, 20 years old, I think all of us would like to see this. We would like to see a mental health and high psychosocial competence, which means that they are not only comfortable but also skillful in the way that they live with themselves and in the way they live and work with other people. Definitely that is what our politicians want or should want. Because the number of children and youth that are not living up to these criteria is growing and growing and growing. The big university hospital in Stockholm says that the amount of young people between 14 and 19 with serious psychological, psychiatric problems have grown over the last 10 years with almost 400%. Young people who don't have any life skills, in a way, and they don't know what to do. So the question is not, do we want that? Because this is, in a way, this is what parents say. The Swedish parents are saying, you know, all we want, they say, is we want our children to be happy. I mean, that's nice. But, but I'm sure most of you realize that that is not really possible. I mean, but if you want to describe happiness apart from loving and being loved and falling in love and so on, it would probably be something like this, that you feel content, you feel healthy, you feel vital, you feel okay. How we do that is, we have many different sources. I will not tire you with that, but I would like to give you one example. I have become also a grandfather, and I have a grandson who is now 5.5. But when he was 3.5, the following happened. He was celebrating Christmas with his parents and my mother in Denmark. I was celebrating with my wife and her mother in Croatia, in Zagreb, where we live part of the time. So the 24th, because up north, you know, they are not Catholics. So the 24th, I said to my wife, I'm going to call Alex and wish him Merry Christmas. And she said, well, you can forget about that because he just got all his Christmas presents and he's busy. And I said, well, I'll try. So I got his mother on the phone and I said, tell Alex that I want to talk to him. Which, of course, being a modern mother, she did not. She said, Alex, grandfather is on the phone, would you like to talk to him? And he said, no, I'm busy. And I said to his mother, I said, you know, repeat after me. And she did that, and she said, Alex, grandfather says that he wants to talk to you. Silence. And then he came back, and he was very present, he was very clear, he was extremely polite, and said to his mother, can you be so nice then, and say to grandfather that he cannot? And that was like the Christmas present of my life, because I know that he now, not only did he survive his family for 3.5 years, he survived 1.5 years in kindergarten, which is not so easy, and he's still healthy. Because the fact is that if we filled up this room or this city with psychotherapists, psychiatrists, and so on from all over the place, and asked them the following question, what is at the core of the problems that people have being with themselves and with other people and so on? The answer would be that they don't say yes when they mean yes and no when they mean no. That is at the core. That destroys. You cannot define yourself as a parent. You cannot be clear, whatever it is. That is friendships, also love relationships, that's all. He does that. Still, the question is, do we want that? In Germany, they have a very strong organization called Starke Kinder, Starke Eltern, strong children, strong parents. I have been working some for them and been in and out of their organization, and I can assure you that the last thing they want in this world is strong children. They don't want strong children. They want children who behave well, who are nice, who are sweet, and who can say hello. That's what they want. But they don't want strong, healthy children. No way. So, is there no? I don't know what I'm doing. There it is.
Oh, go back one.
Maybe I got too far now. Yeah. So what we do have still, exactly like my parents, we have focused on behavior. We're treating children for their behavior. Nobody is interested in anything else. And the more it comes, there's not so much from Scotland, it comes a lot from America, it comes a lot from south of the border here, comes a lot of behaviorism, a lot of models, methods that are supposed to work. not so much for children because that's not so interesting, but are they working for the adults? So what we have been trying to do, and I'm now talking schools, kindergartens, parents, all the same. We have been trying to achieve exactly the same objectives as my parents were trying. What we have been doing is that we have been softening our ways of doing it. We have democratizing them. We have said, no physical violence. No, we've been taking away a lot of the nasty things that adults used to do with children. And we have tried to be nicer about it. What we are seeing now with families all over, and I'm not talking about families that are socially weak in any way, all families, is that we're seeing an extreme amount of insecurity, which I, by the way, consider a very intelligent reaction to the circumstances that we have. But the key question in all questions that parents are asking, teachers are asking, is how can we practice, how can we develop a kind of adult leadership? Because nobody in this world disagrees. Children need adult leadership. So how can we develop a kind of leadership that is not violating the personal integrity of children? And of course, this interest, this commitment of young parents, of teachers and so on, is not only beautiful, it is also extremely interesting to see what can we actually do in that way. One example, a children's home, like a home for misbehaving children, south of Germany. A month ago, I was supervising, and one of the ladies, one of the professionals said, I have a problem with our Robert. Robert is 9.5 years old. He's been with us for 1.5 years, and he's stealing. And he started actually pretty early after he arrived at us. He stole from the adults. Then we got that stopped. Then he started stealing, and now we know that he's stealing not only from the other children, but also from neighbors and shops in the city and so on. And we have been talking to him, and we have been, doing this and this, and telling him that, this is not okay, and we are not, we are not okay with it, and you should stop. But he goes on. So please, I need to know, what can I do? And I asked her the question I always have to ask, unfortunately. Who is he? I mean, now I know his problem, but I still don't know who he is. Because that is a huge difference. So she answers by rereading or memorizing all the paperwork that has been done on him over the years. And they got it. So I said, okay, now I know that he had a crazy, terrible childhood in his biological family, in 2 foster families, in 1 other institution. I still don't know the answer to my question, who is he? And she was genuinely surprised. She says, what do you mean? I just told you. I said, no, you didn't. What you gave me was a bunch of adults describing him. And that's the information you have on him. That is what all the adults in his life think and feel about him. You have nothing about him. She was in shock. She said, my God, not only not about him, none about him. We have this information. What can I do? Because now I really don't know what to do. And I said, well, I have only developed one method in my life, and I hope I can keep it to one. And that is, when you really don't know what to do, try with the truth. It often works. And she says, what do you mean? I'm not lying to him. saying, no, I know, but you're also not telling him the truth. So you do that tomorrow. You go to him and you say, listen, Robert, I have realized that after 1.5 years I have no clue who you are. I have been busy studying what other adults think about you, what our psychologists think, what our physiotherapists think, and so on. I have never asked you. I know your story, but I never asked you, how was it for you to be part of that story? How do you see yourself? And the boy was, because this was, they had a good relationship. There was nothing wrong between them. There was just something missing. So he started talking slowly, and then he went on for 3 hours. 3 hours. He talked and 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 talked. And after that, he came over and he gave a big hug. And all the papers about this boy says he hates physical contact. But which is, of course, everybody hates physical contact if the one who is providing it is not interested in me, but just wants, you know, my body, as women say, or or it's just like, you know, it's just like a social habit that you do like this. So he gave a big hug and he said, Mary, I think I might be able to stop stealing now. And we see that, I mean, we see that thousands of times every year, that it is magical. When you stop preaching, when you stop teaching, when you stop moralizing, and that doesn't mean that you have to make stealing right. It just means that you have to know that, oops, I'm not really good at this. You just have to know that it is never about behavior. It is all about relations. And we have that. You have one of the key people, I think, comes from Scotland, Peter Bonnet. We have lots of others. We have now the whole brain science saying that it's all about relations, and the most beneficial is the subject-subject relationship, which is what I've baptized the relationship of equal dignity. It was very funny to look for words in different languages, because we have beautiful words for it in Scandinavian and in the German language and also in French. But in the English language there is no word, so we have to invent one. There's equality, but that's political. That's like we have, but so we talk about equal dignity. The subject-subject relationship, which is I'm a person, you're a person, and you have to be. I'm sorry. I have the leadership, so I have to take your well-being, your opinions, your dreams, your feelings, your thoughts, your experiences, whatever it is that constitutes you as a person right now. I have to take that exactly as seriously as I take me, or your mother, or your sister, or my wife, or whatever it is. This is difficult. It is very difficult to, well, once you tried it, it's not so difficult. But I think you have noticed that most of the time we talk about children as if they were objects. You know, I see it. I teach all my people around the world. I say, listen, you have to know one thing, and one thing only. Parents ask stupid questions all the time, but they deserve intelligent actions. And the stupid questions are these object questions. What can you do to a 9-month-old that doesn't want to sleep at night? What can you do to a 3-year-old that doesn't eat his vegetables? What can you do to a 9-year-old that doesn't do his homework? And a 15-year-old that doesn't come home at night, or plays computer all night, or whatever it is. What can you do to? And I think everybody knows that there is no answer. Or there's a million answers. The most effective answer, but that is illegal, is to say, beat him, Do it regularly, consequently, and with a good conscience. Then you will start eating his vegetables. The problem is that since then, the world has changed. So within, before he's 9, he will have Googled, you know, the Charter of Children's Rights and the United Nations, whatever he will, so he will not put up with it. And he will know that it's illegal. But everybody knows that. The most effective way of getting somebody to be obedient is to abuse them. The more you do that, the more they collaborate. So,
can I, sorry to interrupt, you've come such a long way, you've had such a dreadful journey, we're well over our time. Can I ask you to...
Yes, I will be very quick. I will be very quick. These are the key values that we have found, and that is not only for family life, that is for what we call pedagogy. Because pedagogics need to use paradigm also. The more pedagogic children are exposed to, and then like now, 26,000 hours between the age of 1 and 15. And we know that children they like pedagogy, they like pedagogy also. But they can only digest about 4 or 5 hours a day. Then it's enough. And so what we're seeing is that pedagogy gets more and more like the values of family, although they have other things. The big dangerous one is of course this one. Because being authentic is the opposite of what most of us were brought up to be, and it is dangerous because it means that if you want to have a dialogue with a child, you have to make yourself vulnerable. And parents have always been protecting themselves very well. So, but I'm not going to get into that, I don't have time to do that. So the basic conflict is still here, and it is still worth discussing, because everybody is afraid that if we pay too much tribute to the individual, then what will happen to society? What will happen to the group? What will happen to the family? We went through that once with women, because women suddenly started saying, you know, we're not going to play our role anymore, we're not going to sacrifice our individuality because of family or whatever it is. And everybody says this is going to be the death of family. It was not, it was the death of some families, but they decided, or they should die. So you have all these words for it, and they are worth discussing. How often are you stepping back with children, especially children in big, big difficulties? How hard is it not to say to Robert, don't steal? How hard is it not to get this little polishing of your own image or your own ego that comes along with saying the right thing instead of doing the right thing? So, come. This I would like to end with. And this is the result of a videotape dialogue that I had with one of the big systemic icons from London, who unfortunately now is suffering so much from his illness that he cannot talk anymore, but he can still think. And I said to him, listen, Peter, our generation have lost because we invented symptoms. We said it is symptoms, behavior is symptoms. Then nobody listened, so we had to change that. We say it is signals. Now we know nobody listened to that either. there's more and more focus on behavior, more and more focus on symptoms. So what should we call it? And we talked it over, and he came up with this ingenious word, invitation. Because that's what it is. It's an invitation. And finally we can get rid of this old romantic cry for help thing. Because nobody is necessarily crying out for help, but they are in trouble. And if we can visit them there, it is worth it. Now I have to.